been compared to artists like Portishead and Erykah Badu, and her latest album, Gateway Experience, is a deeply personal and intimate album that fuses sounds of hip-hop, vocal looping, soul, and jazz. It's an 11-track neo-soul, alternative R&B, trip-hop experience with songs focusing on the connection between the human brain, dreams, seizures, God, and otherworldly abilities. Gateway Experience is number 13 on this week's Top 30 chart. And with me now is Witch Prophet. Hi, Witch Prophet. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm really good. You have been on tour this last few weeks. How have your shows been?
Oh, they've been great. Really missed being out on the road, so it's it was lovely to be out and around people and to get to see other bands perform. And yeah, it's been lovely.
Very cool. Very cool. What can people expect when they come to see your live show?
Well, it really depends where they're seeing my show. So most of the times, it's myself and my producer and DJ Sun performing. So it depends if you're seeing the duo or if you're seeing the live band. So if it's the duo, it's myself and Sun, a lot of heavy hip hop, trip hop, jazz inspired production with vocals and my vocal lead pedal. If it's with the band, it's myself and Sun, still the same component of the hip hop, trip hop beats, but with included with the live drummer and live bassist as well.
Okay, so when it's the live band, it's like a four-piece,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Cool. Amazing. Do you find it different when you have the live band and like the live instruments? Do you get a different sense or a different feeling when you perform, or how does it make things different for you?
With the live drum, it definitely makes me feel more hype, I guess, on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Mm-hmm.
the subs. I like hearing um, the 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 deepness of the drum. Also, I find that it's unfortunate, but a lot of the times, if we are performing without a band, it's seen as though like the sound isn't really cared for, like
Hmm.
the beats.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we have a live band with us, or even just our drummer, it's like the importance of the sound being loud is understood. And I
Right.
think that's mostly like with a misunderstanding or with people not understanding how hip hop works,
Mm-hmm.
or how performance within a hip hop element is.
That's interesting. What is the difference? How do you educate audiences about that? Because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that production, music production, even though it is done through computers and MIDI keyboards and things like that and samples, it's still music. We did bring a lot of live trumpet, live
Yeah.
bass, live piano into the album. But really, when we're performing, we want not just a sound person, but also the audience to understand that imagine the entire band on stage, even though it is, very small on this computer or on this like DJ controller. Yeah, it's still music.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you want to hear music at its fullest? So, having subs and having proper
Yeah.
speakers to actually bring out the bass, the bump to so you actually feel it in your bones, I think is really important to understand when dealing with hip hop.
Yeah. Very cool. I've been wanting, I love your aesthetic. I think like you have a very unique and a very inviting style. Like when I listen to
Oh,
your
nice.
to your
Thanks.
music, when I look at your videos and just how you like artistically, present yourself in the world, it's like, wow, this is a very interesting person who really knows who they are. How did that happen? Like, I feel like not everyone is lucky to sort of have that sense of groundedness and like rootedness. What led to that for you?
Well, I think a lot of people don't know that I've been trying to do music and explore creativity for over 10 years.
Mm,
It's only really in the team really since I released the actual album, my first album,
Mm-hmm.
that it's taken off in a way, and where I've had the opportunity to reach into myself and truly know who I am and what kind of sound I want to work on and to share within the world. It's really because I've spent so many years making mistakes or making those first attempts and being like, this isn't me, who am I really? I credit a lot of my being to my son. I had a son at a very young age, at 18,
Mm-hmm.
and it forced me to fast forward my life into realizing who I was and who I am and who I want to become and what kind of a life and experience that I want to provide for my son. So a lot of it has to do with my acceptance of being a child of the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from East Africa to Canada in the 80s was not the thing that was like, super cool. Like it was always looked upon like, you're a refugee, you're a starving child from Africa. Like that's how I grew up remembering,
Mm-hmm.
people interacting with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then as an adult, really coming into myself, raising a mixed child, really deciding like who I want to be, how I'm going to be creative, making those mistakes. And then, of course, meeting up with Sun Sun and having her really help me focus and drive my creativity in the direction that I wanted it to go.
Amazing. How did music play a part in your development? It sounds like you have had a very full and intense upbringing. You mentioned that you were a refugee.
Mm-hmm.
And, how did music play a part in just helping you to stay who you are?
Well, I come from a very large Ethiopian and Eritrean family. My grandmother had 9 children. They all had children. So I grew up with a lot of cousins. And so one of the things that we would always do is because we were a large family, because we were a Christian family, it was very much like every Sunday you go to church, and after church you go to your grandmother's
Yeah.
house and we all eat lunch together. And what do you do for when you have like 15 kids running around is you tell them go away. The adults are here. You guys go play, and our play was music.
Mm.
And so we had a cousins band. It was called the Cousins Band, and it was, you know, um, uh, my older sister playing guitar, as well as my one of my aunts who just happened to be in the same age group as the
Mm-hmm.
cousins,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple other cousins, and we would sing and make a lot of different skits and stuff. So that way, the parents would get an hour or two of peace, and then we'd run back in being like, okay, now it's time for tea and cake and we're going to perform for you.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've been doing that since I was 2 years old. Like I have footage of us in Kenya before we even immigrated to Canada, like
Mm-hmm.
before we even came here, like doing that and experiencing those moments. And so it's always been, music has always been a part of me. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Are any of your other cousins still pursuing music?
No.
No,
So no,
you're the only one.
no, I'm the only one. So my sister works in film, and I mean, I guess
Mm.
she works. She is works at a music school in Toronto, so
Mm-hmm.
she does still work within it,
Mm-hmm.
but not as a musician. She's also a filmmaker, and the rest of my cousins all work in the medical field, so they're nurses.
Oh, wow.
And my aunt was working as a veterinary nurse and then
Mm-hmm.
also as a human nurse as well. So it was
Wow.
all like, music was never, it was the fun thing for us to do, but it was never the thing because I come from such a strict and religious family. It was
Mm.
never seen as the thing of like, that's what you do for your living, right? Like that's what
Right.
you do for fun, but then you have to be serious when you're an older adult.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I just refuse to follow that because I do what excites me, what brings the life out of me, not what takes the life out of me, but what revives the life in me. And so, and
Yes.
and that's music. So yeah.
Amazing. One last question. If you could collaborate with any other person, who would that be?
Oh man, initially my first thing I said in my head was Tracy Chapman immediately. I would, oh man, I have so many. Tracy Chapman, I would love to do a song with Paul Simon. That would be really cool. I also would love to do a song with Green Tea Peng from the UK or
Cool.
Lil Sims.
Oh,
She's
yes. Yeah,
amazing. Like,
totally.
yeah, that would be Erica Badu, obviously, because she's a huge inspiration. Lauren
Hmm.
Hill, obviously. But yeah, all women in
Amazing.
music and
Yeah.
Paul Simon. Women in music
And Paul
and Paul
Simon.
Simon.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I would love to play a track from your album. Can you pick one and tell our listeners a little bit about it?
Yeah, I'll pick Memory featuring Begonia. It's one of my favorite
Oh,
songs. Begonia,
yes.
fantastic artist from Winnipeg. She magically got on my song from me adding her on TikTok and having a dream about us working together and just saying it on her
Mm.
TikTok live. And she was so down for it. So I'm so thankful. Huge fan of her. Produced by my wife, Sun. Has additional bass by Stacy Shopowitz, or Stacy Plays Bass. Yeah, and it's a song about me dealing with memory fog and memory loss after experiencing focal aware temporal lobe seizures.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time and for your honesty and for your music. You have been listening to Witch Prophet from the album Gateway Experience, which is number 13 on this week's Top 30 chart. This is Memory featuring Begonia.